Hey everyone, welcome back to Broadway Courses. Today we have a good chunk of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. So up first, like always, we have Anne Juliet, and last week it did 92%, this week it did 98%, going from 1,199,000 last week to this week's 1,348,000 this week. Again, it's a show that continues to do incredibly well and it appeals to tourists, it appeals to families. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Though the next musical might be going somewhere soon. A Beautiful Noise is not doing so beautiful. I'm sorry for all these, little jokes or puns, but you know what? I like doing it. Last week, it did 72%, and this week, it only did 61%. It had a $302,000 drop from $997K to $695K. Terrible for any musical, but A Beautiful Noise has had a very unorthodox strategy where they do amazing the week after Thanksgiving and like $1 million, but the week of Thanksgiving they're doing like 800,000. It's a very odd business that A Beautiful Noise is. I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't know if it's gonna last very long. I personally think it won't make it into like 2025, like the full year. I think it will close like in January of 2025. Again, just guessing. I could be completely off the mark because I have been at certain points. And A Beautiful Noise has continued to defy the odds and stay in the race. And I guess as long as it's making 900,000, it's good. But again, these huge drops, it's very inconsistent and it's not very good for investors and people that are like producing the musical. So again, it's good for now, but like it will be interesting to see how it does in the coming year. As it's going to do pretty decent in the next few weeks. Back to the Future did 91% last week and 99% this week, going from 1,364,938 to 1,551,207. This is a gigantic, big smash hit. And again, I'm very happy that economically it's making everything better business-wise, but artistically, musicals like Back to the Future kill the art form, and I don't think I need to explain why, because you guys already know. Again, I don't wish any ill intent, but I've listened to the music, bro, and I've listened to it, and I know exactly what kind of musical it is, and I do not like that kind of musical. It was fun for a time, but we've gone too much of them now. Gutenberg went from $1 million to 985K, and 94% to 93%. Hadestown did 97% last week and 99% this week, going from 764K to 842K. And again, it is doing much better and will continue to do better because of Christmas, Christmas and the holidays, whatnot. And I thought it was going to close in 2024. I still think it could. But again, I think that when I look back at the numbers, it did well enough in the first chunk of 2023 to survive the 6s and the 5s and the poor business they've done in the second half of 2023. And again, I think that it's a musical that I don't want to close. I don't want it to end. I don't want to be proven correct. But when I'm looking at the numbers, it's looking like a musical that's running out of steam and that's losing its audience. And you know that when they bring in celebrity stunt casting, which is what they're doing. So if you're a Hadestown fan, you should be on high alert. You can, I think, rest easy for a little bit, but I do believe that the numbers will go back to where they were once we get into like the January, February, and the spring. And once those stunt casting people leave, what's going to happen with the show? So fingers crossed that it doesn't close, but again, don't be surprised if it does. I also think that Rachel Chafkin, who did Hadestown, is doing Limpka. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's going to be the Longacre Theater, and that's like across from the Walter Kerr. So I can already see the New York Times article being one woman, 2 shows, 1 street. Like, it's there, it's a puff piece. It's going to be there, and I don't hate on that. I love that. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the reasons why Hadestown is still going, because, like, they want to flex. And they should flex. You know, Rachel should flex. But at the same time, at what cost? And again, like, it doesn't cost $1 million to put on every week. It costs, like, probably, 700,000, maybe 800,000. I doubt it's 700,000. I think the lowest it could be 750. And in the past 2 weeks, it's just done that. But in previous weeks, it's been doing 6s and 5s, and it's been going way below where it needs to be. Hamilton sold out and made 1,988,477 last week and 2,316,949 this week. Harmony went from 58% to 55% for 7 performances, and 543K to 543K to 390K for 153K drop. Pack it up. It's doing terrible. I mean, Harmony could survive, but it's not going to get any Tony noms. It's not going to win. The producers could realistically keep it going, but I just don't see the point. Don't be surprised if it closes in the next 2 months. Just don't be surprised. It didn't get amazing, like, New York Times reviews. You know, it's a so-so show with most people, and it's just not, it's not hitting. It's not hitting. So again, you know, could it be still going on in May? Yes, it could, but I just see it business-wise not improving at all. And they've been on Broadway for so long now that, like, I think the writing is on the wall, you know, and it's not like it's a super expensive show to put on, but it's also not like a super small musical. And even like if Gutenberg costs $600 to put on a week, who knows what Harmony costs, you know? How to Dance in Ohio, it's another one it's been a flop. It's going to close soon. It has to. You know, last week it did 69%. This week it did 62%. And it went from 364K last week to this week's 323K. I mean, this is the worst performing musical, box office-wise, in, like, decades. I mean, truly the definition of a flop. And I thought about Spring Awakening. I thought about Next to Normal. They did 300,000, 400,000, and they survived until the Tonys. But that's the difference. Those musicals had a chance. The producers knew. The critics love us. Audiences love us. We can win Best Musical. This doesn't have anything going for it. And again, it's a different economy, it's a different time, and they've been going for about a month and a half now, I'd say, or about a month, right, or at least a month, and they just aren't going to find their audience. Things are only going to get worse, and again, it's going to close. Like, it's so obvious to, like, even a casual that knows nothing about theater or theater grosses can look at these numbers and be like, yeah, that's probably going to close soon. So just prepare yourselves for that. Kimberly Akimbo did 77% last week and 73% this week, and 528K last week and 462K this week. So not great. Again, Kimberly has lost a lot of its money. I can assume that it probably cost at least $700,000, and so it's doing mostly 4s and 5s. You know, prestige musicals are not what they once was. I don't know if that's proper English. They are not what they once were, in the sense that the Tonys don't give you that big boost. I mean, the band's visit made $1 million before the Tonys, and that closed in March. And Fun Home also didn't make $1 million, and it only lasted a year. But that was like the barometer. Now, like Strange Loop closed in January. Akimbo, I think, could close in March, because I know the contracts for the original cast is expiring, and I just can't see how they continuing to do this. If I was the producer of Akimbo, I would have announced a closing date for mid-January and allowed us to get a lot of that good money and go out on a high note instead of going out on a whimper that Kimberly Akimbo is going on. Again, love the musical. Broadway is better when shows like Kimberly Akimbo can grace its presence, and I hope it never closes. I'm glad they haven't announced a closing, but it's inevitable. It's just inevitable. No musical that has 4s and 5s in front of it is doing good, even before the Tonys. Like, we excuse it because it's probably going to win Best Musical, and it's going to get amazing reviews, but we can't excuse it after the Tonys, where it really is underperforming, and the producers, investors, I can guarantee you, were told, hey, we're going to win the Tony, we're going to do 7s, we're going to do 8s, we're probably going to get to $1 million, we're going to lose money, but it's going to be okay. Didn't happen. Merrily We Roll Along made 100% capacity, or did 100%. Going from 1,932,241 to 1,865,980. Moulin Rouge did 99% last week and 98% this week, going from 1,531,385 to 1,446,681. So as you can tell, these two musicals are doing quite well. Shucked, which is closing, last week did 91%, and this week did 87%, going from 885K to 734K. And I wished that, and again, if you're a fan of that musical, I didn't like it, but these are good numbers now. Like, it's actually doing what it's supposed to do. You know, high 700s, 800s, 900s. If Shucked had done this from the beginning, they wouldn't be closing. But again, that's one of the perks of announcing a closing early, because it's actually done pretty decent since they've announced its closing, and they've, I think, done better in the fall and the winter than in the summer. Because I don't think in the summer they had an 8 at all in like July and August. 6 made $1 million and did 97% capacity. Some Like It Hot last week did 80%, and this week did 86%, going from 951K to 938K. So it actually did reach its weekly running costs, which is good. But again, it is sadly closing, so it's a little too late. And yeah, it made $1 million over the summer, but they lost so much money in the fall and the winter leading up to the Tonys, and their advanced sales weren't looking good. And again, it's such an expensive musical that it doesn't take a lot for it, and not even to do poorly. Like, you would think 700,000 is decent, but it's like, it's unacceptable for a show like Some Like It Hot. And then Spamalot made $1 million this week compared to last week's 918K. Last week it did 76%, and this week it did 81%. I'm so happy that this is doing so well, mainly because it doesn't have any big stars in it. And you would expect Spamalot to need big stars to promote it and for it to do well, but these are all like authentic, you know, Broadway actors. You know, Leslie Kritzer, James Van Iglehart, Alex Brightman, who's coming in. These aren't household names, and they're still managing to make $1 million. Yeah, the capacity is low, but it's doing better than like the musical that won Best Musical this year, which is terrible. But again, I'm glad that it's succeeding, and I hope that it continues. And I think it will, because it's Christmas. And then Sweeney sold out, did 1,823,727 last week, and to this week's 1,872,146, actually outgrossing Merrily. And then the Book of Mormon made 1,300,000. The Lion King 3 million. Wicked 2 million. I know I don't cover those three shows a lot, but I felt like it was needed because, like, you know, that's why. Because they're always doing those numbers. Like, that's just a normal day in the office for those three musicals. And I you know, am continuously shocked with The Lion King doing so well. But anyways, those are the grosses for this week. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.